Imagine for a second that you are looking through your childhood photo album.
Okay, yeah.
Flip the pages, and you're looking at all these beautifully captured moments, right? Like birthdays, holidays, maybe your first day of school.
Right, the classic family memories.
Exactly. The pictures are crisp, the colors are vibrant, but there is one massive unsettling problem.
Which is,
You aren't in any of them.
wow.
Yeah, your
Hmm.
family isn't in them. The houses don't look like yours. The food on the table is like completely foreign. And the people in the photos are just total strangers.
That is, I mean, that's incredibly eerie to even think about.
Right. If you grew up only looking at that album, how would you even begin to understand your own place in the world?
It's a deeply disorienting thought because you would essentially be trained from a very young age to view yourself as an outsider in your own life story.
Exactly.
The foundational images you use to build your concept of normal would completely exclude your own existence.
And that profound sense of invisibility, that's exactly what we are exploring in today's deep dive.
It really is the core issue.
Yeah. We're looking at a fascinating 2024 study by researchers Farheen Mahmood and Julie W. Ankrum. It's titled An Investigation of English Children's Literature in Pakistani Schools.
And they specifically focused on pre-K through grade 3, right?
Yes, exactly. And our mission today is to explore a really profound question. How do the books children read actually shape their core identity?
Right.
And, what happens when an entire education system effectively leaves its own culture out of the library?
It is a question that goes far beyond just, evaluating what is printed on a syllabus.
Oh, totally.
It gets to the very core of cognitive and cultural development. We're really talking about the basic building blocks of how a child constructs reality.
Yeah. And whether you are a parent, an educator, or, just someone who consumes movies, books, and media, understanding these hidden forces of representation, it will completely change how you look at your own bookshelves.
It definitely changes your perspective.
It certainly changed how I look at mine. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Right. Well, to really understand what is happening in these Pakistani classrooms, we first need to establish a psychological framework for how children actually process literature.
Okay, lay it out for me.
So back in 1990, a scholar named Rudine Sims Bishop coined this foundational metaphor. And developmental psychologists and educators, they still rely on it heavily today.
Oh, really? What's the metaphor?
She described children's books as acting as windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors.
Windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors. Okay, that is a highly visual way to break down a complex cognitive process.
It really is, yeah.
Walk me through how those three elements actually operate in a child's mind.
Well, let's start with mirrors. When a child reads a book and sees a character who, looks like them, lives in a family like theirs, or maybe shares their daily cultural experiences.
The book reflects their own life back to them.
Exactly. It validates their existence. On a psychological level, it tells the child that their specific lived experience is, quote unquote, normal and worthy of being documented.
Right. It anchors their self-worth.
Precisely.
So it's that shock of recognition then. The book is basically telling them that they are a protagonist, not just like a background extra in someone else's story.
That's the exact effect. So then you have windows.
Okay, Windows.
These are books that allow a child to look out into a reality that is completely different from their own.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they see other cultures, different landscapes, diverse ways of living. Windows are crucial for building empathy and, an understanding of the wider world.
Because you need windows to realize the world is bigger than just your own backyard.
Exactly. And finally, Bishop described sliding glass doors.
Okay, what's that step?
This is the immersive step. It's when the window isn't just something you observe from a distance, right? It becomes something you can actually step through.
Oh, wow.
The reader is invited to use their imagination to walk into that story, relate to those foreign characters, and temporarily become part of the author's world.
It's like looking at a smartphone.
How do you mean?
Well, sometimes it's a window to the internet where you see the rest of the world and you can learn about things thousands of miles away.
Right.
Then sometimes you open the camera app and it's a selfie mirror. It reflects you right back to yourself.
That's a great analogy, actually.
Yeah, and both are essential functions. But imagine if your phone never showed your own face.
Right, you take a selfie.
You take a selfie and a stranger's face pops up. Day after day, year after year. You'd start to question your own reality.
What's fascinating here is how early this psychological impact really takes root.
Yeah. How early are we talking?
Well, the research points out, and they specifically reference a 2019 scholar named Puroila, that identity construction begins in early childhood.
Wow, okay.
It isn't something that happens when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
It's formed through everyday narratives, the stories kids interact with when they are like 4, 5, and 6 years old.
That young.
Yeah. Picture books give children a fundamental sense of who they are and, importantly, where they belong in the social hierarchy.
Which means if they only ever see windows, they start to think their own house is just, I don't know, a waiting room for the real world.
That is the exact psychological shift Piruela argues happens. When children cannot find themselves in the stories they read, when there is this overwhelming excess of foreign content, they slide through the glass door of those foreign stories.
And they just stay there.
Basically, yeah.
Mm.
They start to internalize that this outside, foreign world is the definitive reality. The environment they actually live in gets subconsciously categorized as secondary or even inferior.
Man, that's heavy. But if mirrors are that essential to a child's psychological development, how does a country's education system end up with almost none of them?
Right.
I mean, Pakistan didn't just accidentally misplace its own stories.
No, of course not. We have to view this through the historical context of the region. We are looking at the lingering mechanisms of a colonial education system.
Okay, the British Empire.
Exactly. The British Empire colonized the Indian subcontinent, which included modern-day Pakistan, from 1858 to 1947. And during that near century of rule, the education system wasn't just tweaked. It was entirely overwritten to serve the needs of the colonizers.
Wow, overwritten entirely.
Yeah. The ruling administration viewed the existing indigenous educational approaches as inherently inferior. And to understand the sheer scale of this institutional mindset, the study actually quotes Thomas Macaulay.
Who was he?
In the 1830s, he authored this highly influential policy document called the Minute on Education. He effectively became the architect of Western education in the subcontinent.
Oh, I see.
And in it, Macaulay devastatingly claimed that, and this is a direct quote, a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole literature of India and Arabia.
Wait, hold on. Let me challenge that premise for a second.
Sure.
Didn't the Indian subcontinent have a massive, rich culture of oral storytelling that went back like thousands of years?
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about deep traditions of epics, myths, folklore. I mean, it wasn't an empty literary landscape before the British arrived, right?
That is a crucial piece of the puzzle. The cultural landscape was incredibly dense and rich. As the study notes, elders traditionally narrated stories to the younger generations rather than writing them down in formal, standardized scripts.
Right. The oral tradition.
Yes, the oral tradition was the primary vehicle for transferring knowledge, morality, history. But we have to look at the mechanics of how colonization operates.
Okay.
Macaulay's system didn't just disagree with that oral tradition. It systematically dismantled its value by tying economic survival directly to written English.
Oh, wow. So they essentially built a bureaucratic wall.
Exactly.
If you wanted a government job or legal standing or, any kind of social mobility, your oral traditions were suddenly just useless.
That is the mechanism in action right there. By dismissing oral histories and native languages as unscientific or unacademic, the colonial system established a new, rigid hierarchy.
Right.
English was positioned as the ultimate arbiter of intelligence, civilization, and success. You had to pass written English exams just to participate in the new economy.
And when Pakistan gained independence in 1947, they didn't just scrap that entire bureaucracy and start over.
They couldn't. After independence, the newly formed nation had to function immediately.
Right, they had a country to run.
Exactly. They had to rely on the institutions the colonizers left behind. The government frameworks, the civil service, the judiciary, and of course the schools.
And in all those arenas, English was still the dominant language.
Yes. Which brings us to the present day. As the research by Haidar in 2019 points out, possessing a command of English in modern Pakistan is essentially a passport to privilege.
A passport to privilege.
Yes, it dictates social connectivity and economic prosperity. If you want access to higher education, corporate jobs, or international opportunities, English is non-negotiable.
Well, if English is the ultimate passport, who actually gets a ticket?
That's the big question.
Right. And that brings us to the hard data collected by Mahmood and Ankram. The researchers gathered book lists from 19 pre-K through grade 3 schools across Pakistan.
Yes, covering major regions like Punjab, Sindh, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and Balochistan.
Yeah, they looked at public schools, elite private schools, and semi-government schools, just to see what kids are actually reading during these formative years.
And the breakdown of these schools is where the modern economic disparity becomes I mean, glaringly obvious.
Give me the numbers.
In Pakistan, 88% of primary schools are public, meaning they are government-run and designed to serve the vast majority of the population.
Right.
To make education accessible, these public schools charge a nominal fee. The researchers documented fees as low as 19 rupees a month.
Wow. Wait, how much is that?
For context, at the time of the study, that equates to about 7 U.S. cents a month.
7 cents a month.
Yes.
That is the baseline reality for the overwhelming majority of children in the country.
Now, compare that to the other end of the spectrum. This study also looked at elite private schools that charge up to 43,999 rupees a month,
Which is?
nearly 200 U.S. dollars.
Wow. Okay, in that economic context, that is a staggering amount of money.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the researchers ran a statistical analysis to see how that fee structure impacted the number of English picture books, storybooks, and anthologies the schools provided for reading instruction.
And what did they find?
The resulting data showed a massive, undeniable link between what parents pay and what kids actually get to read.
Let's look at the actual numbers here because this is wild. Out of the schools analyzed, 31.5% had absolutely zero English picture books or storybooks on their book lists.
None at all.
Zero. These schools, which are primarily the low-cost public ones, rely solely on standard state-issued textbooks to teach reading.
And this is where we really need to examine the cognitive mechanics of how children actually learn a language.
Right, because textbooks aren't stories.
Exactly. Educational psychology tells us that rote textbooks do not spark imagination, emotional connection, or critical thinking. Textbooks are transactional, right? They're built for memorizing grammar rules and vocabulary lists.
Yeah.
Storybooks, on the other hand, provide effective engagement.
Effective engagement.
Yes. They motivate children to read to the end of a page to find out what happens next. They allow kids to explore complex feelings and absorb language organically in context.
Right, because they actually care about the characters.
Precisely. When you strip storybooks away, learning a language devolves into a mechanical and often really tedious chore.
It's like mandating that every child must learn how to swim to get a good job.
Right.
But the public schools only offer a chalkboard with diagrams of swimming strokes, while the private schools give their students an Olympic-sized pool.
That captures the structural inequity perfectly. It creates a self-perpetuating cycle.
Yeah.
English is required for economic survival, yet the very tools proven to help children actually comprehend and master the language-engaging children's literature are gated behind exorbitant tuition fees.
So the majority of the population is expected to learn a globally dominant language without ever being given a compelling story to make them care about it. Okay, but let's look at the students who are swimming in that Olympic pool, right? The privileged kids in the elite private schools who actually do have access to these resources.
Right, the ones paying $200 a month.
Yeah. The data shows they have book lists with up to 12 supplemental storybooks per grade, or in some cases, unlimited digital access to vast libraries. But here's where it gets really interesting. What exactly are they reading?
Well, the researchers didn't just count the number of books, right? They meticulously analyzed the titles, the authors, and the publishers to understand the actual cultural content being consumed.
And the findings are crazy. Out of all the 112 book titles analyzed across all these schools, the number written by Pakistani authors was exactly zero.
Not a single local author.
Over 68% of these books were from international publishers, specifically the regional branches of Oxford and Cambridge University Press.
Right.
And another 7% were from strictly international publishers abroad. Every single identified author was foreign.
Which is staggering. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this brings us to a concept popularized by the Nigerian novelist Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie.
Oh, the danger of a single story.
Exactly. Adichie warned that when readers, especially young, developing minds, are repeatedly shown only one cultural perspective, it subtly trains them to think in a highly restricted way.
It's like trying to learn how to be a master chef, but you are only ever given recipes for ingredients that don't grow in your country.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, you're reading about how to prepare truffles and wild salmon, but you live surrounded by mangoes, lentils, local spices. Eventually, you just assume your own local ingredients simply don't matter to the culinary world.
Right, you'd think they aren't worthy of a recipe.
Exactly.
And that's what happens here. When a Pakistani child reads exclusively about characters named Peter and Jane having picnics in the English countryside, or, celebrating snowy Christmases and eating roast beef.
None of which they see in their daily lives.
Exactly. Those foreign narratives become the common sense default of what a valid story looks like. Their own reality monsoons, rickshaws, Eid celebrations, local food. It's entirely absent from the pages.
Wow.
The single story reduces their vibrant daily life to an unpublishable afterthought. It essentially teaches them that their lives are not literary.
So we have a system providing all windows and absolutely no mirrors.
Exactly.
But wait, why is the local publishing industry not stepping in to fill this massive gap? I mean, if there's a need for English books that feature local Pakistani culture, why aren't local authors and publishers dominating the market?
Well, it comes down to the stark economics of publishing and institutional support.
Okay.
Producing high-quality children's literature,
Mm.
specifically picture books, is incredibly expensive.
I guess that's true, yeah.
You need capital to hire skilled authors, professional illustrators, and meticulous editors.
Yeah.
Local Pakistani publishers often just lack that heavy financial backing.
Oh, I see.
Furthermore, writing compelling narrative fiction in a second language presents a significant technical barrier. Previous studies mentioned in this paper note that when local stories are produced, they often suffer from technical flaws in narrative pacing or, awkward language phrasing.
So because the local publishers don't have the deep pockets to perfect the material, the schools just default to the imported books from Oxford and Cambridge because they look more polished and professional.
That is the economic reality driving the syllabus.
Yeah.
The mega publishers have centuries of institutional wealth, massive distribution networks, and highly refined editorial pipeline.
Yeah, I can't really compete with that.
No, a small local publisher simply cannot compete with the slick, heavily resourced publications coming from international conglomerates.
Right.
As a result, the educational system relies on these imported books, which completely limits the representation of the student's own society.
I want to look at the academic fallout of this. If a child never sees themselves in a book, how does that actually impact their ability to learn the language?
The researchers emphasize that the impact is severe. If children only ever look through windows at unfamiliar worlds, they struggle to emotionally and physically connect with the texts.
Right, because there's no mirror.
Exactly. They don't see their own physical features, their own emotional realities, or their own cultural landmarks reflected back at them. This disconnect breeds apathy.
Ah, apathy.
Yeah, it actively hinders their English comprehension because if you don't care about the world inside the book, you are not going to put in the difficult cognitive work required to decode complex vocabulary and syntax.
You just detach. You learn how to pass the test by memorizing the words, but you don't learn to love the language or use it creatively.
It creates a deeply concerning pedagogical crisis. Pakistan is navigating a reality where learning English is a non-negotiable requirement for social and economic mobility.
Right, the passport to privilege.
Yes. Yet the primary mechanism for teaching it requires students to constantly consume the cultural blueprints of the West, leaving their own heritage to just fade into the background. Man, well, let's summarize the journey we've taken today.
Sure.
We started with the foundational psychology of reading, right? The understanding that books are cognitive tools acting as windows to see the world and mirrors to validate ourselves.
Yes.
We traced the mechanics of colonial history, specifically how the British system dismantled oral traditions and turned written English into the ultimate gatekeeper of success.
Exactly.
And from there, we looked at the modern data from Mahmoud and Ankram, revealing a stark economic divide. Over 30% of schools have zero English storybooks, leaving kids with dry, mechanical textbooks.
Yes.
And for the privileged students who do get access to literature, the authors are entirely foreign, leaving them starved of their own cultural reflection.
It is a multifaceted inequity. We are observing an inequality of basic access to resources, deeply compounded by an inequality of cultural representation.
So what does this all mean? I want you listening right now to take a moment and reflect on the media, the books, and the literature circulating in your own life.
Think about the bookshelves of the children around you. Look at the covers, the authors, the settings. Are you providing enough windows for them to understand others? And just as importantly, are you providing enough mirrors for them to feel seen and validated in who they are?
It's a vital question.
Representation isn't just a buzzword. As the data shows, it is the very foundation of how we construct our reality.
And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We've spent a lot of time analyzing how this dynamic affects an individual child's identity, right?
Yeah.
But let's scale that up to a macroeconomic level. Think about a developing nation where an entire generation of future leaders, doctors, engineers, and teachers are learning to read, to imagine, and to dream exclusively through the cultural blueprints of foreign nations.
Wow.
How does that shape a country's future innovations? If your childhood imagination is built entirely on someone else's foundation, What kind of world do you eventually build when it's your turn to lead?